Chapter 2, Part 3. Organic compounds. The first macromolecule we're going to talk about is carbohydrates. They provide mostly energy that you need to live. The sugars includes starches, something called glycogen, which how sugar or glucose is stored in your body, and also cellulose. Some that you take in are converted into other substances that help build structures in your body or to generate the energy, the ATP. Some carbohydrates are saved in your body for food reserves, and they are divided into three major groups based on their size: monosaccharides, disaccharides, and polysaccharides. So here are the monosaccharides. They're the simplest, and they're either a 5-carbon sugar, as you can see here, deoxyribose and ribose, or a 6-carbon sugar, glucose, fructose, and galactose. These are in DNA or RNA, and these are just different dietary sugars. It's called 5-carbon because there are 5 carbons in its ring. 1 at the corner here, 2, 3, 4, and the other one's right there. 6-carbon ring has 6 carbons, 1 at the corner. So when it's a ring formation, you are just supposed to assume or know that the carbon is in the corner, except if there's an oxygen there or something else. C, 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 C. Boom. So monosaccharides are like what I think helps me think of or remember it is like Lego pieces. 1 Lego piece, 2 Lego pieces. You put 2 of them together, you get a disaccharide. So to make a disaccharide, you need to combine 2 of them. And when you do that, so here's a glucose and you add it to a fructose, it's called a dehydration synthesis reaction. So you produce a disaccharide right here, an example being sucrose plus water. Another example of a disaccharide formation or dehydration synthesis reaction is glucose plus galactose to produce lactose, which is milk sugar. Then if you see the opposite of that reaction, when water comes and breaks up a disaccharide, it produces glucose and fructose called hydrolysis. Polysaccharides then are the largest carbohydrates and contain up to hundreds of those monosaccharides put together. A principal one in our body is called glycogen. That is like the present of glucose that's stored in our body for later, and it's stored in the liver or our skeletal muscles. Those are the muscles right next to the bones that help us move. So when your blood sugar drops, like in the night, you're not eating, you're fasting, your liver will break up or hydrolyze, remember, water comes in and breaks it up to release glucose and put it into your blood so that you have enough glucose. Or you can just eat hot tamales for glucose, but not while you're sleeping. Lipids. Okay, so that was carbohydrates. Now we're on to lipids. This is another major group of organic molecules. Like carbohydrates, they're going to contain mainly carbon chain, also hydrogen and oxygen. But I guess I failed to mention, but this carbon, hydrogen, oxygen that the carbohydrates contain, it's in the 1 to 2 ratio. Carbon and oxygen. Hydrogen always is double of whatever carbon and oxygen have. Hydrogen is double. So lipids don't have that 2 to 1 ratio of oxygen or hydrogen to oxygen. They have only a few polar covalent bonds, which may mostly have nonpolar, which would make them hydrophobic. Fats, if you put in a glass right now at home, so water and some vegetable oil, you would see they would not mix. Okay, they would layer up on top of each other. Lipids don't mix well with water. They are hydrophobic, so they're insoluble, meaning they don't mix well with water. And here's an example of some lipids. Here we see a fatty acid chain, carbon with hydrogen off of it. And this is an example of a saturated fat. And here is oleic acid, sounds Norwegian, and it's monounsaturated. What's the difference between saturated and monounsaturated here? What do you notice visually about this? Okay, think about that. Triglycerides in your body are the most plentiful lipids. They provide protection, insulation, keep you warm, and energy. Immediate energy and then stored. At room temperature, they are either solid, fats, or liquids, oils. And again, they're solid or liquid depending on if they're made up of saturated fats or unsaturated. Saturated fats are going to be solid at room temperature and unsaturated liquid. And triglyceride storage is virtually unlimited, meaning your body can keep storing fat. Your fat cells, called adipose cells, they just keep getting bigger and bigger and bigger. Your body can just keep storing fat in them. And then if you lose fat, they'll shrink, shrink, shrink. So anything that you have excess in your diet, so if you eat too many carbohydrates then you burn or that you need, your body stores it as fat. If you eat too many proteins that your body can't use or store, stores it as fat. So there we go. So you want to, like for weight control, you want to eat less than you burn off than what you need. Not too much at a time or else that'll be too much dramatic weight loss. But there's a balance there. Triglycerides, here's an example of what it looks like. They actually contain twice as much energy per gram than carbohydrates and proteins. Fats are good. You want fats in your diet. You just don't want too much of the wrong type of fat or only fat. So here is a triglyceride. Tri, like a triathlon, that means there's 3 fatty acids. 1, 2, 3. And it also has what's called a glycerol portion. Phospholipids are another type of fat. They are in the cell membranes. They have a polar region, meaning it likes water, and a non-polar region that doesn't like water. So that's what gives its name amphipathic, meaning it likes water and it doesn't like water. It's split. So it's the head of it, which I'll show on the next screen, is polar. And the tails, the fatty acid tails, are non-polar. So here's the head of the phospholipid that likes water. So in the cell membrane, the aqua heads here go right up against the outside of the cell and inside of the cell, right next to the water. And the fatty acid tails, 1, 2, go on the inside. Another type of fat is a steroid. They have 4 rings of carbon and sex hormones or steroids, bile salts, some vitamins, cholesterol, a very important lipid component of cell membranes. Here's some example of some steroids: cholesterol, testosterone, estrogen, and also a stress hormone called cortisol is a steroid. These are very crucial, important hormones to maintaining your body fat. So that's the end of part 3.